This is the Weigh-In Podcast by Van Guad Chestnut and the occasional pop-in Sylvester Romero on this week's Takedown Thursdays, an episode presented by the Weigh-In. We talk to you about Final X. Let's take a look at that Final X because, boy, is it starting to heat up. And we got to look at some of these U20 world teams. Cadet world teams have all been set in great ways, which is really nice. And amidst all of that, we're going to talk about that world team trials because the way the U.S. Open went, man, it's going to make world team trials interesting, but nonetheless, for us, that is this week's Takedown Thursday, an episode presented by the Weigh-In. So if we jump right into this one, the old favorite words. We jump right into this one, the old favorite words. The final let's look at. So at 57 kilogram is Luke Lilladall, and he's in what he'll get is a World Team Trials winner. At 61 kilogram, you got Marcus Blaze versus the World Team Trial winner. At 65 kilogram, you got Bo Bassett versus Real Woods. That's going to be a good one. At 70 kilogram, you got Ridge Lovett, and he's going to get the World Team Trials winner. And at 74 kilogram, you got James Green versus the World Team Trials winner. Now, at that 79 kilogram, you got Chance Marceller versus Levi Haynes. I'm going to be honest with you. I got Levi all day. Chance Marceller is not, like, I get it. He's, beat some good people, but I got some trust in Levi Haynes here that I believe that's a Lehigh win. Now, another one your viewers are going to really like, that 86 kilogram, that Kyle Diggsy, Heat Valencia. That's exciting to me. Kyle Diggsy, Heat Valencia, that's exciting. That's going to be real good. And then at 92 kilogram, you got Mike Machiavello versus Trent Hidley. At that 92 kilogram. I like that one too. Although I think Trent's going to win that all day. Just saying. Now, that 97 kilogram, that's Stephen Buchanan versus Kyle Snyder. I think that's going to be good. That's going to be good. That 125 kilogram, that's Wyatt Henderson versus World Team Trials winner. It depends on who Wyatt gets, but regardless of who he gets, like, it kind of will depend because some of those heavyweights are really good, but at this point right now, I see just like this. I see Wyatt Henderson winning no matter who, but you never know. So that's what we're looking at, that final X. I know we said we'll talk about that U20. Well, the U20, you had Isaiah Cortez, decision, Gray Burnett, 4-1. You had Elijah Cortez, Tech, Dean Anderson, 10-0. You had Bo Bassett, Tech, Kellen Wall, 14-4. You had Landon Rabanu, decision, Seth Mendoza, 8-2. You had Jaden James, the Della Barton boy, decision, Harrison Peterson, 9-1. You had Ryan Burton, decision, Asher Cunningham, 9-4. You had Adon Sinclair, decision, Brock Madonna, 9-0. You had Jimmy Mustaney, decision, Lincoln Dip, 15-14. You had Michael Boyle, decision, Robert Platt, 11-2. You had Cody Morelli, decision, Deshaun Ross, 8-6. Winners advance to the World Team Trials Finals. So, an early look at this U20. So that's the U20 final result. So you're looking at that for the U20. So it's looking really good for those U20. And early look. So let's a little bit talk about Bassett. this is a crazy stat that I happened to see posted by media. Bo Bassett, senior level U.S. Open champion, U20 national champion. No losses, 12 wins. Total points scored 112. Texan pins 9-2. For all the Bassett haters, Bo Bassett's gonna make some noise in college, and that's nothing. He's gonna make some noise in college. Now, if we go ahead and talk about this U.S. Cadet World Team, you have Ryan Wax, Cooper, 45 kilogram, Ryland Wax, 48 kilogram, Cooper, Deputy, at 51 kilogram, Arhad Mills, 55 kilogram, Chase, Karen Bauer. At 60 kilogram, you have Jojo Bjork. At 65 kilogram, you have Arseni Kiwanu. At 71 kilogram, you have Cam Howard. At 80 kilogram, you have Jaden O'Farrell. At 92 kilogram, you have Alsad Terzani. And at 110 kilogram, you have Peter Morocco. If I tell you that's not a good way to go, I don't know what is, man. It's just that's the, you look at these teams nowadays and they are stacked up. You know, it's stacked up at this point. Stacked up. The way you look at it, there's no other way to look at it. It's pretty stacked up. Pretty stacked up. So that's something that doesn't look really good. And why I say that World Team Trials don't look good, because all the guys that could not win the U.S. Open are gonna be looking to go World Team Trials, and it's gonna stack right up. And that's why I say it's gonna be good, because you got a lot of names on there from the U.S. Open that did not make it, that might try to find themselves at World Team Trials. Like Chance Marcella took out Evan Wick. You talk about Caleb Hansen lost to Ridge Lovett. So, you talk about, there's some names. You look at those names that lost and you say, wow, if they're going to World Team Trials, it's going to look interesting. Amidst that, this is another thing. It was big talked about. Ben DeVino knocked off Jax Forrest. And you know what? You Penn Staters talked about the insecurities of Jax and said, he in a sense, he's beatable. And I think this is the first time, I have nothing to say. I'm going to give you his credit. Ben DeVino knocked off Jax. I understand that's freestyle, but you got to kind of, right? You got to kind of count it at some point. So Ben DeVino knocked off Jax. So he avenged his loss, but even then, you got to say, well, Jax is good, but I don't want to make excuses for anybody, but you can't ride too high after winning a national title. You gotta keep on going. But that's going to be interesting. Now you see that, the Penn Staters they are right at this point. So it is It is an interesting thing, you know. So it's something that I'm looking and I'm like, yeah, that's interesting. So it's pretty. It's heating up. Yo, and who else saw this? Budo Bartlett knocks off Vito Rujao. That was a 16-10. That's why I told you this U.S. Open was going to be good. I told you it was going to be good. Like names like Vito Rujao were knocked off, or I mean, were knocked off. You think somebody like Vito, who is really good, had his wrestle off with Zane Rutherford after, and I thought that was a good thing. Them wrestle offs that when they did those, after saying, hey, we didn't get it right, so here's to try. The only thing I didn't like about that, if we're bringing back to the old Zane and Vito, um, what I didn't like about that was that that wrestle off way back when. Let me see if I could, because I feel like I'm getting it wrong, and I don't want to get it wrong. So damn, I got it wrong. It was not Vito Rujard. It was the Diakomahalis. Yanni Diakomahalis, man. I'm sorry, guys. I got it wrong, man. I'm sorry, guys. But there's a let me let me get myself to why. What I'm saying is that was really good. The only thing I didn't like about that way back when was about like if you're gonna redo it, I thought you should have redone 3 matches right up there, right up top, 3 matches, 1, 2, 3. I felt you should have turned it into like what Flow does, kind of like now. If they have something like, well, no, I don't say it was Flow that did it, but you know what I mean. Like when Flow's kind of involved in an event, when they set stuff up, they kind of add some like matches to it, like almost like UFC style. There, like you're like, this is the main thing, but we got, and that's kind of what I kind of felt it should have been because it was too short. It was 1 match. You pay a ticket to come see 1 match. It's like bang, bang, bang. It's done. I kind of thought they should have like got a little bit of high schoolers in there. You set up some matchups, something where you say, "Wow, the fans want to see this. The fans want to see that." Set it up, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like set it up, and have and not even just high schools, like just mega star matchups. Like you say, oh, the 125 national champ versus the 133-pound national champ. They meet in the middle at a weight at 130, or they meet at 127. You know what I mean? Like you kind of do something like that, and you say, wow, who wins 2 NCAA champ? Like you kind of line it basically like Bout at the Ballpark, Bout at the Ballpark. If any of you remember Bout at the Ballpark, like that, they had matchups. It was Giuseppe G. Ray of Ecuador, who was an alma mater, who went, I mean, not an alma mater, but who is an alumni of the same college I went to, wrestled Fix. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not, well, I mean, I don't remember the real story to that. I believe who was supposed to wrestle Fix backed out or something like that, and then Giuseppe got the work out. That's admits not the issue or anything, core to the issue here. But what I'm saying is like I kind of felt that should have been, but I think like now if that's something like that happened and they didn't get it right and they ruled later, I'm pretty sure yeah, they probably wouldn't line it up and say, "Oh, this is the main event." But that's what I'm saying. Like that, I think that's really good when you get stuff like that. And I mean, I think that started. I want to. I'm not gonna say that started the build of this this wrestling era of where we have real American freestyle and we got Claw that's doing good. You know, it kind of did though because when you look at all these organizations that are not out there for wrestlers, the money is there, man. What they got to start doing is they got to just go to like you know, like I'm gonna say, they got to go to Minnesota Viking Stadium and set down a mat and set down a mat. You know, NCAA's they were gonna get there to see how was it worth it, and then COVID hit, and I thought that was gonna be the best NCAA tournament yet. You were gonna have you were broadening the spectrum for allowment of fans. So let's look at okay, let's break this down for you. And I'll get you some of those some of those. Excuse me. I'll get you some of those some of those numbers. So let's look at it. So we're talking a Minnesota Vikings game, 66,000. I mean, yeah, 66,860 fans for a Minnesota Vikings game. And that should tell you something. And let me get you. So let's look at the last NCAA Nationals, the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, where they had it there, and let's see. Let's see those numbers here. 19,432 fans. So that just gives you the spectrum of why I believe having a NCAA championships in a dome, a football dome, I call it Fargo style. That's really what I relate it to, is like Fargo style. Um, why that is a really good thing for the sport of wrestling. And I'm telling you, this is a really good thing because I'm gonna break it down for you as I just got those two numbers. That's a 47,428 fan difference right there. That's a lot of people. And in some of the best NCAAs, it's hard to get a ticket because of how good it's getting nowadays. If you move it to, and I'm pretty sure, negated that I'm gonna double check so I'm right before I. Yeah, I got it right. They've already selected that 2027 is going back to St. Louis, and 2028 is going to Minnesota, the U.S. Bank Stadium. So they're going to try that again. So my thing here, I know a lot of you want to know. My thing here is, okay, we're seeing a lot of. I get there's not too many places that you can bring NCAA's, but we're seeing St. Louis again. We're seeing like bring it back to New York when they did. I understand some of these can't have good, like, I understand what, they're not good like seating. They're trying to maximize their potential, and with all those other arenas, they got basketball, but let's get this in some other states now. Let's not see the same Cleveland, St. Louis. Let's start really pushing NCAA's out there. I'm ready for this Minnesota, man. And many of you don't know, after NCAA's, they have the great honor of selling the mat. The mat in Minnesota sold because I'm pretty sure it did. I don't. Well, now thinking about it, I don't remember whether that was an old mat or whether that was Minnesota. But they sell the mats after NCAA's, and I know that there was a picture posted that Minnesota's mat made it somewhere. It was at a high school tournament at some point, and it was pretty funny because I'm like, man, we never got to see the national, but all the mats are sold. because that's the way they do it. They make all the mats for NCAAs, and then after the fact, they are sold. It used to be they were sold on Resilite, so you could buy the mat after NCAAs. And the finals mat was always the most expensive mat, and it was a very hard mat to get a hold of because that's the holy grail there. That's the finals mat, and that was always the most expensive, and it was hard to come by. Nowadays, it's hard to come by because people don't waste time on that finals mat. That gets taken off the website pretty quickly because it's like they get it like hold that NCAA finals mat. And it's in terms of that, it's like, okay, that's a really it's a really good model that not everybody gets to do, but like as an NCAAs, you get to go and sell your mat after because every year they make new mats. And I think that's good for, I guess, the quality and safety of the athletes. So that there's no argument to, it was an old mat, you've had it but it's really nice. And the reason being, if you don't sell those mats, you got to figure out how to store them somewhere till the next championships. And people don't understand. It costs. So they sell them every year at a decent price, which, for years, Resilite has taken care of that. So the long-standing relationship with Resilite, it's done like that. So I think one of the first things you say here is, given that we're going to be back at another Minnesota, we hope that this time it'll be held. We hope that, fingers crossed, nothing stops it, because I think that's going to be really good. I think the potential for tickets and fan sales is through the roof. And if this renders itself something successful and it pays itself off, and as many don't understand, I know what you're thinking. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, turning a profit. If they can do that in a stadium like this, well, then there's no chance that we don't see it in Atlanta at the Superdome, Mercedes-Benz Superdome, or we don't see it in Los Angeles at the Rams Stadium. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't see it at some of these domes. We don't see the tournament in some of these domes where you're going to be able to allow a lot more space, because at the end of the day, that is always the sheerfold problem, is that when you're selling out a session and you have no more seats left, you got nothing left. And let's think about this. When you do the NCAA finals in Minnesota on the football field, you could sell twice as many tickets. Because think about it here. I want you to really think about this here. If you add extra seating, you know what, you could have it in here's a side note where they had a boxing fight in AT&T Stadium. Hey, if you could put a boxing ring, I'm sure you could put a wrestling mat. But that's kind of what I'm talking about here. You're going to have floor seating on the field. You're going to be able to sell twice as many tickets as you could sell per session for the NCAA finals. Really, you really be able to do a nice thing here for that. I like it. I think it's going to be a good idea. Only difference that you're probably not going to see is as many people on the floor as you probably would in a normal arena, But it's going to be really good. I like the idea. Sell some tickets. Obviously, they end up to allow the families in the front row. You'll be able to do that too. Like, it's gonna be good. That's the biggest NCAA championship I'm excited for. And if that's the case, Bo Bassett should be getting his second national title during that tournament. Given that he goes in NCAA and does exactly what he's doing now at the senior level. Yeah. I say given because, you never know. Upsets are a thing. I think Matt Ramos and Spencer Lee taught us that one most. And so did Vincenzo Joseph and Isaiah Martinez. There's a lot of NCAA upsets that you look and you say, hey, it's a real interesting one. But no, it's definitely a lot of stuff where I say, okay, wrestling is better than it was before. And that's because you have so many things that are building the sport, like Real American Freestyle, like Claw. So many great organizations out there. And there are others that I've mentioned where I think there's one league that's rolling around that Jersey area that's kind of like it's not getting a lot of coverage, but it's kind of it's folk style. It's like college wrestling style. It's not really freestyle like all the other ones are, but it'll grow in its own way. It'll get up there, and I think when all these leagues come together, I think Real American Freestyle had the right backing. I really do. When it was coming up, I was like, well, let's see how this gonna look. No, it's good. It's good. It's really good, and I like it. There's no. I like it a lot. How great Real American Freestyle has been able to show. It has not disappointed, nor has Claw. Claw has not disappointed either. I think there's two really great organizations that have not disappointed in any way, and I think in terms of that, you have to ask yourself, where does it lie for wrestling? And it only and where it lies is what I mean by that is at a median. From where it was, it has grown and it's still growing. And you look at the talent level that comes out. I get what you guys would say about, that it's no secret that I love the Okie State Cowboys. And I believe Cowboys can do all this and that and that. Kel Sanderson's running through every NCAA team title. Yeah, but whether Kel Sanderson's winning each year, the more titles Kel Sanderson gets, the more exciting NCAA wrestling is getting. Yeah, he's getting titles and he's getting team titles. When you look at these finals, it's just not how it used to be, where you're like, okay, you got not every match, but it would be like a match, then another match, and you got Kale back in the seat. Like, no, they're winning team titles, no doubt about it, and I agree to that. Hats off to Kale Sanderson. But what I'm saying here is that the finals are exciting. Yes, Jax beat Ben Davino, and I know you're going to be like, oh, you're bringing that up again. But Ben Davino revenged him at the U.S. Open. Like, is that not... Ben Davino, revenged him, U.S. Open. Look at the names that are making the final. Like, Rocco Walsh. No, not Rocco Walsh. I think Rocco Walsh was a name. I've got to... I'll tell you in a minute. Because I got them brackies. I got them brackies pulled up here. And I'll tell you exactly who it was in a minute. Because I know exactly who it was, too. Rocky Elam, not Rocco Walsh. Rocky Elam. Rocky Elam, the 2 seed, loses to Remy Cotton in literally the second round. This is what I'm talking about. If you're telling me a 2 seed going down in the second round, to a Rutgers wrestler, if anybody else would have been asked the question, they would say it wouldn't have happened. But me, I would have told you it would have happened. I'm the same one that says Okie is going to compete. I'm the same one that says Okie can beat Penn State. But if I'm not, my point here is not to any way, let's clear this up, not to any way bash Rutgers and say, wow, Rutgers ain't good. No. No, that would be incorrect. What I'm saying here is that the talent around NCAA wrestling, including Rutgers, is so good that you got 2 seeds get knocked off because it's just that good now, where you're seeing a lot of these guys, a 15 seed, where you're seeing very scrappy 15 seeds, because Remy Cotton was a 15 seed. You're seeing very scrappy 15 seeds. Like, if you're a 1 and 2 seed, it's not guaranteed a national title no more, because you're seeing guys that are at 15, guys that are at 20 are saying, hey, I got nothing to lose here. So let me, before we're in the end of this epi, but let me get you a stat here. So I'll start from 125. At 125 in the final, we had 10 seed. 10 seed. That is the lowest seed in the final, as I'm scrolling through. 149, another 10 seed. Let's see what I can find for you. Let's see what I can find for you in the end. 10 seed. We got 10 seeds making the final. I know that's not a good thing, but I kind of look at seeding like this, and I know that's not how you should, but this is how I look at it. I kind of look at seeding where you got 1, 2, 3, 8. If you're seeded 1 day, I'm like, I kind of look at that as okay. That's kind of who you're seated up. That's kind of your placers right there. I look at it as okay. Those are the guys that may potentially be placing. You know, you look at who B2. I know that's not what seeding is. Seeding is criteria for, who's. I would say for who's better than who. You say, oh, you're the 1 seed. You're the best wrestler. You're seeded first. You're seeded 8. I kind of think when you're seeded 8 and 9, I kind of think you're the outside. Like, okay, you're just barely into that placing. And with that, I always understand those are not guarantees. Why do I say that? Because Rocky Elam, 2 seed, not an All-American. That's what I'm talking about. That nothing is a guarantee, and you got a lot of scrappy guys that you just don't. It's a tough thing to see. It's a tough thing to see something like that. It's very tough to see something like that. Look, the lowest placing seed, we got Gabe Arnold, 27 seed, took 7th place. If that doesn't tell you something. 27 seed, as I run through this. Real quickie for you guys. That's what I'm talking about. Let's see. That they're getting scrappy. A 27 seed take 7th place? That's what I'm talking about. Who in the right mind would say, okay, I got a 27 seed. They're going to be an All-American. That's what I'm talking about. That NCAA wrestling has gotten better, scrappier. I'm not saying it hasn't before, because I'm sure in the previous years, you'll have stuff like this. But I'm telling you, it's got a whole lot scrappier with these wrestlers that they're fighting to place. And you know what caused this? Many of you's not going to agree. NIL. Because now you're trying to say, hey, I took 7th at the National. I deserve more NIL than that guy. You know why? Because he didn't place. That is what I'm talking about. At first, I was highly up against how it would just, it would kind of, it would a little bit ruins the sport. No, it didn't ruin the sport. It turned it 10 times more competitive because now you have you can add merits to this. But that being said, we're in the end of the episode. I wanted to give you a fun Takedown Thursday, an episode presented by The Way. I wanted to give you a fun one. But nonetheless, this is The Weigh-In Podcast by Benoit Chestnut and the occasional Pop-In Sebastian Romero. Please like, comment, subscribe, share. This is all I got for you on this one. This is it. So, Weigh-In out.
The Weigh-In,